program is part of the Scene Project's podcast network. The Scene Project features interviews with independent musicians, comedians, and artists from across the Midwest. Become part of our community and support local art wherever you are. Welcome into another exciting episode of Real Biz. I'm your host, Bubba Startz, and with me today is president of BSG PR, Brian Gross. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Great to meet you. Great to see you. Hope all is well on your end. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you taking some time for me today. Obviously, public relations, the unheralded hero of getting musicians and stars of really any business out there. And I think you're going to have some insights today for us that a lot of our artists that are, fans and members of our community don't necessarily think about in the short or long term of their career. So before we get into all of that, though, I want to just give you an opportunity, give us a little bit of your backstory, and then we'll just pick up the conversation from there.
Yeah, I started when I was 17. I was interned at a record label called Deaf American, and 3 days a week, my senior year of high school. People thought I was crazy. Most of them were working at the pizza shop in my hometown, but I decided to drive to Burbank, California 3 days a week and learn the trick and the trade of the music industry. And so I met some incredible people. I met some incredible artists, went away to college on a music scholarship, came back and just sort of grinded. In the 90s, you went to a lot of shows, you met a lot of people, and it was really face to face as far as looking for the next opportunity. I was writing for papers. I even did a stint of some DJing in college and whatnot. And so it was a hustle. Never mind, I would record some music and just had fun. But I mean, I was seeing bands, like I said, 5-6 nights a week and going to shows and connecting with people and working my way up. But it all was in PR departments at record labels.
Incredible. And obviously that's led you to having, your own company now and to be out on your own. A much different world in the 90s compared to the industry as it is now.
Yeah, it's such a different world, right? Never mind, the 90s are what, 3 to 2.5 decades ago. So, you think of at the end of the 90s, what Napster was doing to the industry and how it affected how piracy sort of blew up in the 2000s and how the industry had to make really aggressive changes. Then streaming came along, and that has become the major thing to where, I don't care what trade you're in as far as entertainment goes. It's really about algorithms, right? It's ultimately the algorithms and what people are connecting with that you're trying to tie in whatever form of entertainment, whatever it is you're promoting. At the same end, we went from a lot of print to a little bit of internet to now mostly internet with a little bit of print. So, what I'm doing is trying to get articles placed on my clients and reviews and interviews and everything else on a plethora of websites and platforms and social media, and just trying to make things go viral in ways that stick and garner people's interest and build fan bases.
Yeah. While back, they used to call it the record business. Now these kids growing up don't even know what a record is.
Well, I mean, the crazy thing is that's the only major margin is the actual still physical vinyl, but it's become sort of the collector's thing, right? Like, I'm a huge David Bowie fan, and every once in a while, Rhino will release some sort of really cool piece of vinyl of David Bowie, or you've got the record store day, in April every year. So playing vinyl, sure, that's a little different, but it's become sort of the collecting of vinyl and artists using that as a revenue stream for what it's worth to keep their fans interested as far as what you can collect, right? Like, yeah, we had CDs and cassettes and everything else, and people like to do that now as almost sort of novelty to create those types of items. But it's still, now just focus on the streaming world and the social world and YouTube and everything else. Yeah, it's just absolutely such a different world that people have either had to adjust or leave.
Feels like it's happened so fast, right? That the speed at which things deteriorated and reemerged as something completely new, and that the internet really took over. It just happened so fast that people that couldn't adjust just completely got ran over or left out in the cold.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of speed and also just technology, right? Like we've jumped from different types of platforms. I always say as a Gen Xer, like, we started with Pong and we're going to end with having to know AI, right? You find me a generation in history that had to make a larger, faster adjustment to a wider span of technology. So it's a combination of speed, but it's the introduction of technologies that have worked and that have failed that we've had to deal with for multiple decades. Because yeah, you wake up and you're like, man, I've got to deal with it. I've got to know this AI stuff pretty well in order to move forward. And now, AI is creating art in itself. So that's a whole other battle taking place in whatever platform, whatever you create artistically that you're dealing with.
And now it's building its own social media platforms that humans aren't invited to. We've heard some interesting news just this week. Things are escalating quickly. And a world, I think, where we go back to a very visceral, and the reason that records they've taken more market share now because nobody buys CDs anymore. I don't know if people are even really printing CDs, hardly at all. I mean, maybe some independent artists, but I don't think it's really part of the record music industry as a whole. Among the bad investments that the record industries and the big players have made, I highly doubt they're getting back into printing CDs, millions at a time. But speaking of AI, how has that influenced what you do as a public relations manager? And are you, how does it affect your life? Not just on like the creation maybe of PR and press articles or, announcements and things that you would make, but in the way that you're crafting certain things, knowing that a lot of the search engine is all AI SEO now. And really it's a different world than it was even a decade ago with Google SEO.
Yeah, myself and my team definitely use AI. We definitely use it when we feel it's a necessity or it only helps with what it is that we're doing on our day-to-day. At the same time, we're looking at AI and its potentials and what we can do with it, how we can use it to better, our relationships with media, to better our relationships with clients, to garner more clientele. Very open-minded. I think there's twofold in AI. It's fear of it or embrace, and maybe a little bit of both. But ultimately, it's growing. It's going somewhere, and it's going to be part of our daily life in a larger scale. And ultimately, how you embrace it and how you use it and how you make your life better with it is the ultimate task at hand. So it's definitely something that I embrace, not fear. I think I make the joke that my generation grew up on a lot of bad sci-fi films. So and some good ones, but we just have this natural fear of robots and AI that they're going to kill us. And it's like, I think it's a little much. So for now, let's focus on how we use the technology, how we use the space, how we, take on what's being thrown at us with AI and the speed of AI to better business, to better our lives, and so on.
Yeah, and the robots may rise up, but I think you and I will be long gone before that, or we'll be part robot by that point. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much unknown, right? Like you could really go down a wormhole, both doom scrolling and in your own head, if you really wanted to. I choose not to. It's too much. Let's see what happens. Let's take it as it comes. Let's focus on our day to day. Let's enjoy going for a walk at this point.
Right. And so much of what we do with my company, I mean, for the most part, I'm a one-man show. Without AI, I would have never been able to achieve what I have in a year's time, both on the video editing side, where we use a program called Podcast AI that takes all of my long form and is able to edit that down. I would have paid tens of thousands of dollars to video editors to get what I've accomplished. And I would have never been able to achieve 350 plus thousand views on YouTube without that. So I have no platform really without AI. It's also helped me in the design of pitch decks and different things of reaching out to companies. And, I'm still being very limited on how I use in the music business. Now you have, programs like Suno that are cranking out demos and music that's better than anything that I've ever put on tape, Brian. So, is it changing the world? I don't think it's ever going to replace the creative, like the process. It can't feel, right? So it can't do at the basic element of what music is, especially to me as a songwriter, that like it can't get my feelings out of me and onto a page and that song and that feeling. And it's never going to experience the joy of that either. So I don't feel threatened by it, but it's definitely a tool that you need to learn how to use. The time to fight it was a decade ago, not now. It's here. Everyone around you is using it, whether they're, just creating silly photos and writing a trend and, candy canes and whatnot. But, me, I'm choosing to use it to advance my business in every way possible.
Yeah, I think the last fight that was ever won in technology was sort of Betamax versus DVD, with the hint of Laserdisc in there. Otherwise, you can't fight these technologies, these platforms, and everything else. You do have to embrace it in some aspect. I think to your point, yeah, we all have found it very useful in some capacity to where it makes our daily lives a lot easier. And to those that say, well, it's replacing person X, Y, and Z, well, ultimately that person is also figuring out, how do I use AI? What do I do? Or where do I shift my focus in my career and my life goals ultimately? There's a personal aspect of public relations where I have day-to-day, I have daily contact with my clientele to answer questions, this and that. Could AI replace a publicist? Of course. I'm not in denial, but ultimately, it's, to your point, the personal aspect of songwriting. I have the personal aspect of my career and my contact and my relationships to better those around me so they feel comfortable in their decision making. Ultimately, trusting something of AI in major decisions in your career is quite the gamble. And I think it could be a bigger gamble than it is with someone with X amount of experience in life, having done the same thing, sort of the 10,000 hours mindset. So I just think it's really important to be very open-minded. There's, I'm not going to be naive and say it'll never replace me. That's ridiculous. But for now, I have a career, I have a business, I have clients. I help them, guide them with their careers and what they have going on. And there's a personal aspect that I provide that is key and important to the fundamental growth of my clients and their careers.
Yeah, and both on the client side and your relationship with the media companies that you're working with for placements, right? And AI is never going to be able to replace that. And if anything, it actually gives you more time where you're not, behind, and probably your days of writing press releases have been long gone, and you have team members that do those things, or are using it to craft those. But it frees up your time to focus on the relationships even more. And that's what it's done for me. Early on last year, before I started using podcast AI, I was record an episode and then I would have like 3-4 hours invested into editing and trying to make sure. And I wasn't even able to create at the level, not just of quality, but of quantity that I needed to get out there and do it. So I was falling further and further behind because I'm not a video editor, right, to do that. But I could pay a fee to a company that developed a software that allowed me to go from, I can do like maybe 3 episodes a week and actually get them out, to I can do 30 episodes a week. And what these episodes are not just content, it's the relationships. It's growing that network in this community that we've built that have allowed me to excel. And I think, for me, I don't try to get too deep into the, maybe the ethical practices of it, but the long and short of it is that these major companies that are out there are going to be using this stuff. So me not using it is having a very small effect on in like a positive direction, right? Like me not using it is not moving the needle at all back in the other direction. So I might as well jump in and try to advance my life so that maybe I can have impact on the world in a different way.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. You have to see the potential and the growth and the positives of the usage of the technology to better your relationships, to better your business and everything else. That's just the way it is. If people want to be afraid, it almost weeds itself out, right? Like ever, ever since humans existed, the weeding out of the haves and have-nots and those who can and cannot is pretty straightforward. And here's just another aspect: people are going to live in fear of this. There's nothing you can do about those people. But for those who embrace and are excited and educate themselves and really deep dive and look for the opportunities, they're going to find success one way, shape, or form.
Awesome. Awesome. So what is what is a PR manager, what is your main function in your day to day? I mean, I know you're at the top of your company and what you do is a lot different than someone who's just starting out, whether intern or, kind of entry level with you. But just for our people who don't really understand public relations and what that means, what is it that you guys do?
Yeah, I deal with all aspects of media. So the big four are online, print, television, and radio. And within radio, I would throw podcasts. And in this world where we have over 5 million podcasts, there's an aspect of I'm pitching my clients to these media outlets. Media outlets are coming to me either for my clients or with other needs that I try to fulfill. And it's just, it's the relationship between my clients, myself, and the media that I'm working on every day. Building out more relationships with media like yourself, keeping my clients happy, for lack of a better term, helping them accomplish their goals. But it's the day-to-day sort of grind. And I don't care what level of you are as far as a publicist goes, there's a daily grind of communication, of assistance, of putting out fires, a little bit of everything. And that's what we do. So publicity, being a publicist working in public and media relations is unlicensed. So anyone can wake up one day and decide they're a publicist. But ultimately, it's the relationships and what you do. I always say it's not brain surgery, but it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. There's a little bit of that first man in, first man out, or last man out, and woman. But it's that 24/7, emergencies on the weekends, events, travel, everything that goes along with, like I say, in its simplest form, keeping your clients happy and keeping the media that you deal with, happy and wanting to continue to work with you.
And I think some of our, artists will be familiar with, a press release and having someone that can maybe place you onto a TV show. But for a client of yours, I mean, how on a day, are you talking weekly or monthly? Obviously, when they have bigger things going on, maybe a new release or an award show or something of that nature, you have a lot to talk about. But how often are you contacting and staying in touch with your clients?
Oh, daily, man. Every day there's some sort of contact, even if it's just a text or an email, there's constant contact daily. I find the most important aspect of my job is staying in contact with those that I work with. People don't want to be ignored. People don't want to wait. There's no time for that nonsense. It's just the constant contact that brings sort of that comfort level that I'm right here. You've paid me. I'm not disappearing. So I take pride in that, having had my own firm for over 26 years now, where I'm reachable. And in this day and age, you have to really, there's certain places you can go in the world where you can fall off the grid. Otherwise, you're available. And so it's really vital that you're available. I mean, I remember receiving a client a long time ago of an A-list musician I'll leave their name out for now, but they had sent an email to someone and they received an out of office reply. And their response to the third person they were dealing with was, they should never be out of office. Find me a new publicist. And I wound up getting the gig.
Yeah, well, lesson learned, huh?
Lesson is, don't use out of office. Just, it's not worth it.
No. And I think a lot of people would, and I've already put on do not disturb several people that I've gotten those replies from in my own email blast. For me, being a relatively small company still, like I said, in a lot of ways, it's still a one-man show. I end up doing a lot of my own publicity. I've landed myself on the local radio and news stations and some out-of-state ones where I kind of learned the game a little bit, but it can be a slog reaching out to these people. Do you find it I mean, I feel like it's easier to maybe find who you want to contact, especially if you're working in a new market or kind of out of your home area. Now, of course, someone like you who's been in it for a long time, you have a relatively large Rolodex, if anybody knows what that is anymore. But, but do you find it that the job is easier or harder? Is it kind of the same as it's always been?
It fluctuates. It changes. I think the thing I would say about this day and age is attention spans are gone. People are being pulled in a million directions. People's time is of major value. Everyone's caught up in doom scrolling in some way, shape, or form, so they get sucked down the wormhole. But ultimately, the amount of time in the day is fine. You only have so much of it. So people are constantly being pulled in a lot of directions, and you got to figure out how to fit in and handle your business with people in a proper manner to accomplish what you're looking for. So there's a respect, there's maturity to it, there's how you handle things. But at the same time, we communicate in so many different ways: DMs, emails, instant messages, the multiple content platforms on your phone, whether it's Telegram, whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's all these platforms. So, and people like to communicate in different ways. I have to adjust to the person. It's not about my way, it's about their way. So whatever that is, that's how I communicate. I have clients that I communicate through Telegram, others through WhatsApp, others through phone calls. Others just seriously want to talk. So you have to be very flexible and agile in that regard. But there's only so much time in the day. My favorite quote was Reed Hastings of Netflix saying that the other platforms aren't his competition. His number one competition is sleep, because it's 24/7. That's all he's got to get people onto his platform to watch whatever content he's delivering to them. And if they're asleep, he loses them.
Yeah, what a poignant statement that is. As someone who doesn't sleep a lot, he doesn't have a lot of competition here. I'm sure you yourself, what's 8 hours? You got to be kidding me. I can't remember the last time I had 6 unsawed. I got a new kitten at home. He's hungry all the time, it seems like, and he's not afraid to let me know. Brian, any tips for our artists who are listening, who are a big part of our fan base as well? Any simple kind of PR tips that they can do on their own to prepare for needing a publicist and being into that world and to becoming a client of yours?
Well, I'll give them a larger statement, and this is what I tell my clients and a lot of people these days: less thinking, more doing. Take risks. Publish your materials, write your songs, don't overthink it, and put it out there. There's 3 things that happen nowadays as far as entertainment goes. People will love what you do, which is great. People will hate what you do, which creates an even larger reaction for you to work with, or nothing happens. And of those 3, the worst thing is nothing. So, and the beauty of that is take those risks. Don't sit on something and go, should I not? Just do it, because one of 3 things will happen with your music, with your performance, with whatever it is that your art is. I just try and tell people not to overthink, because while you're thinking, someone else is doing. And so that's the thing I stress the most to people in this day and age. And whether it's you have the budget and the time and the need for a publicist, you'll talk to someone like myself or a professional if you're looking to build and grow, and you'll have a better idea of, I need someone, or if, I need more time and whatnot to then hire a publicist. But that being said, man, take risks. You have to. We look at David Bowie's career and we applaud him and we miss him and this and that, but there's plenty of times where David Bowie couldn't sell a record. There were periods where nobody cared. There were periods that he feels he wrote his worst material. And I think we put so much pressure on an artist in this day and age to be perfect right now, every single time. It's not possible. It's impossible. So don't be afraid to take the risks. We've seen it, and we see when artists make horrible albums that we don't like, and we've seen artists that make beautiful albums that we cherish forever. But if they didn't, it's the old Beavis and Butthead. If you don't know what sucks, you wouldn't know what's good. I mean, it's still a great statement. I don't care who the source is. was from. But, take the risk.
Yeah, 'tis better to be prolific in this age than to be perfect, because you're not going to be get it, and somebody's always going to hate it, no matter how perfect you think it is. So,
Totally agree.
Brian, where can everybody find you if they're in need of a publicist and want to work with you? And I'll let you get out of here.
Yeah, it's at BSGPR on X, Twitter, and Instagram. BSGPR, and then bsgpr.com is my website.
Awesome, Brian. Well, I appreciate you hanging out here. Always love talking some Bowie and talking about a game that a lot of people don't know, but you don't really need PR unless you're out there doing something. So just
100%.
do it. There was a famous company that used that slogan a long time ago, and it still rings very, very true. They don't need any free press on my show. Brian, appreciate you hanging out with me today, and thanks for being part of the scene.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the time.